Hey, welcome to July. I am getting closer to showing up at the end of the intro. I think I finally got part of it in. I made it longer. Now I just have to figure out the buttons. Donna's not here to help me, so well, I suck at it. Anyways, June was kind of a crazy month. If you read my blog, I was in San Antonio, then I was in Iceland, then I got the flu. But I did manage to get a couple books in, and they're both books you want to read this summer. Okay, so the first one, if I can pull up my little presentation here, is The Spectacular by Fiona Davis. I'm sorry. She has been hit or miss with me. I loved The Dollhouse. I was so with Magnolia Place. This book put her back on my auto-buy list. It might be her best book ever. It's billed as a story of the Rockettes and Radio City Music Hall, because as you know, she always does a book based on a building. And it is about that, but it's about a lot more. The protagonist, Marion Brooks, is a Rockette dancer. She does it against the will of her family and her fiance, and her going against their wishes ends up having very tragic consequences. Her turmoil between doing what she wants to do versus what society wants her to do is very poignant, and really is what carries the book. But accompanying that is another storyline, which is about the Mad Bomber of New York City. Fiona calls him the Big Apple Bomber. That's a true story. That really happened. There was a guy who was exploding pipe bombs for about 16 years throughout Manhattan as revenge for a power company who would let him go, and he suffered an injury from it. And he was angry that they never compensated him, and he, as his revenge, just kept blowing up things. She manages to intersect these two stories, and that's where the tragedy occurs. Marion gets involved. I'm not going to spoil what happens, but she gets involved in the investigation, and she gets involved in psychiatric profiling. She gets involved in trying to track this guy down, and that leads to a lot of very adventurous, kind of dangerous situations. There's also another mystery that involves the fate of her late mother and her relationship with her father. There's some family secrets that she discovers, which kind of surprises her. She idolizes her father, and what she discovers isn't necessarily put him in the best of light. Again, though, what I thought was the strongest part was feeling her turmoil and her confusion, I guess is what I would say. She is torn between doing what her family wants and doing what she wants, which I think is so representative of a lot of women in the 50s. They were really expected to follow societal rules, get married, have children, raise a family. And here you have this woman who wants to dance and express herself and have a career and be independent and be sexually independent, all these things which fly in the face of what society wants. Davis does a terrific job of portraying her. Marion is a very sympathetic character. The only complaint I have is I felt like her father and her sister deserved different fates. I personally thought that there should be I was disappointed at what happened to them. But that is a minor nitpicky thing. Do not let my opinion of that convince you not to get it. You should read The Spectacular. It's probably Fiona Davis's best book to date. It's a fun, quick read. About halfway through, something happens which changes the story, and you will gasp. I did. I was caught off guard, and I didn't expect it. She does a great job with the mystery and blending the two stars. The other book that I want to recommend to you is The Paris Agent. Okay, now let me explain. Kelly Rimmer's last book, The German Wife, she did the impossible. She made a German Nazi wife sympathetic. I didn't think that was possible for me to actually have sympathy for a Nazi, but she actually pulled it off. It's an astounding book, and as a result, she became one of my favorite authors. So when I heard that The Paris Agent was coming out this month, I had to get a hold of advanced copy. It's fantastic. Okay. Again, she blew me away. It is the story. Okay, so from page one, my heart was in my throat. All right. Page one opens with one of the protagonists handcuffed on a German train heading to God knows where. And from that moment on, I was hooked because you want to know what happens to these people. She tells a story. It's 3 timelines, 3 different heroines. The story surrounds a secret mission during 1944 when the British sent over secret agents to help the French resistance. And a lot of these agents were women. And she talks about 2 particular agents that are over there. There's also a double agent that's putting the mission at risk. The other timeline is in 1970, and you have this woman who's helping her father. He's decided he wants to try and track down the man who saved his life during World War II. What comes to light is that he was a spy. He was part of this mission. He doesn't remember anything because he had a head injury. The only thing he can really remember is this nagging sense of guilt that he did something wrong, but he can't remember what, and no one wants her digging into it. So naturally, she digs into it, and we get her uncovering truths about her father and her family. At the same time, we get to the story of the agents unfolding. Rimmer did a fantastic job with the mystery. I thought I knew the double agent at least 3 times before I actually figured out who it was. It caught me by surprise. She caught me by surprise. I will say at the end, she did not pull any punches with what happens to these people. No one comes out of it unscathed. It's another one of those gasp-worthy books. There is a scene where I couldn't believe what happened, and I was like, oh my God, no. But she pulls off, I can't even explain it. It's just wonderfully written. Her heroines are so human. She's really, really good at putting you in their shoes. These women were not super prepared to be agents. They were just ordinary, everyday people who stepped up because of a cause, which I love stories like that. I love stories where there's an ordinary person who's in extraordinary circumstances. And these people make mistakes because they're human. They're not super agents. They're not trained like James Bond. They make mistakes, which causes problems. They trust the wrong people. They fall for the wrong people. All these things happen. But they're willing to die for a cause. They're willing to fight for a cause. They're dedicated to doing the right thing. And it makes them so awe-inspiring. I give this 5 stars. Kelly Rimmer is a freaking genius. I'm going to interview her for the featured author and step to the story. I will keep my gushing to a minimum, but in the meantime, the book is out July 11th, next Tuesday. Get it. It's a great read. So if you have The Spectacular and The Paris Agent, you have some great poolside, beachside, porchside reading for this month. I'll give you a bonus one because last month I mentioned The Paris Daughter, which I also, by Kristen Harmel, which I also said was kind of a gut punch because it touches on motherhood and sacrifice and all those things that any person who had a child will feel to the core. It's out now. When I reviewed it last month, it hadn't come out yet. It is out. It's a hardcover book, but it is worth the price of a hardcover, or I would download it and read the ebook. So that's my 3rd bonus recommendation, which would be The Paris Daughter. Apparently this summer is kind of like a Think Paris. We have The Paris Agent, The Paris Daughter, the Paris Deception. If it's got Paris in it, buy it because all 3 of those were great books. In the meantime, have a great July. Like I said, I will be back on July 18th interviewing Kelly Rimmer, and we'll talk more about The Paris Agent and how she pulled it together. We will also, Donna and I are going to be reviewing and discussing The Beach at Summerley by Beatrice Williams, which those of you who know, Beatrice is one of our favorite authors, and the book is already proving itself to be brilliant. So when you tune in August, I will be giving it a rave review. Anyways, that's it. Have a terrific July. Be careful in the sun, stay hydrated, and have a good weekend. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.